I just wanted to come on here and yap a little bit about some changes that have been going on in my life. So, um, if you know me, you know that basically I have been having a really interesting time. So, like, basically, I've been working on myself, working on my business for like a really, really long time, and that hasn't necessarily changed. It's more like it's only intensified. Whereas, like, if before I was working on business all the time, like trying to land clients, trying to increase my presence, whatever. Now I'm just upskilling because I find myself in this work situation where I like, as much as yes, I'm still working on really big problems. My main responsibility is just make sure that the product is actually like really good, and then I can just upskill on the side and work on things that I genuinely care about. And one of the main things I care about is AI, and especially like going into this new age where anyone can do everything except for like really high leverage, high skill things. I realized that I just basically have to be like really, really skilled in whatever I'm doing, and that would basically mean that at least within the next 20 years I'll be like set. That's my main thing. I don't really care about anything else. I just want to make sure that my future is proper, and I also want to make sure that I go into a field that I actually care about. Um, Again, if you know me, then you know that I don't just talk about AI and automation on this channel. I also talk about like consciousness, and I feel like there's a huge link between the two. Like, a lot of people say, "Oh, robots and AI aren't really the right path when we're trying to figure out like what makes people, conscious and whatever." But I recently came upon, no, the the definition came to me, right? The definition of consciousness, which is basically the ability to simulate reality. Um, the, Conscious beings are conscious because they can imagine situations, because they can make predictions about possible futures. Like, that's why fish are conscious, because they can make these predictions and then change their behavior based on what they think is possible. And then we come to us, we're probably the most conscious animals on this planet, because of just the scope of predictions that we're capable of making. So if you think of consciousness as this thing that's basically like, I'm not gonna call it a prediction engine. I'm gonna say like, basically we are on the spectrum of prediction engines, and that's what makes us conscious. Like, we might be like a V8 or a V12 or whatever, among these engines, but like, we're just engines at the end of the day. And AI is also stepping on that spectrum, because that's literally what it does. And like, when people try to deny like, before, I intuitively felt like AI was conscious, and I intuitively felt like there will come a time where denying it will be wrong. And then after learning about how AI is actually created, like how LLMs are created, and then realizing that they're just token prediction engines, I sort of backtracked on my own definition. I was like, okay, these feel to me more like programs. But recently, my intuition has been tingling, and so has the entire fucking community. Basically, talking about all these emerging capabilities that keep popping up everywhere. And like, again, like, this is just again another thing where it's like, you probably shouldn't be going against your own intuition. Which is funny, because that's exactly what I did. Like, it's very clear that something's going on, that it's able to pick up certain things that just would have been impossible. It feels very human, like it feels beyond what it's capable of. And that's something very exciting to me. That's something I want to study, because I feel like this ties together everything that I care about. Right? It's this reality as a simulation. It's the nature of consciousness, and its computation. So I've just been consuming literally anything and everything I could find with, like, in relation to that. without actually caring too much about where, like, which direction it's going. Because at the end of the day, what I care most about is the quality of the ideas that I consume, and not necessarily whether the ideas are in the right direction. Because I don't know what the right direction is, right? Again, if you know me, then you know that one of the major things that I kept preaching about literally the whole of the last year was hyperintentionalism, which was basically this thing of constantly controlling every single aspect of your expression in this simulated universe, which would shift your probable state towards the right direction. And again, like, I thought I understood what the right direction was, because at the end of the day, with enough data, you can start making these types of predictions. But that's exactly the thing. I am a prediction engine within a prediction engine. So what that means is I'm nothing more than a brain that can only perceive, some space of possibilities within the entire conscious universe that is able to perceive the space of every possibility. So how good will my predictions actually be? That's my question. And the answer is they won't be that good, unfortunately, you know. But I still have to make the predictions. I still have to take the steps that I'm taking. But I just have to do things differently, and this is basically just actually I generated this. Let me show you. So I have this anti-gravity. What I basically did was I set up an environment here where I could basically like prompt an LLM to create these tools for me. One of these tools is a markdown slide generator that is able to generate slides given a prompt. What I did was I wrote something on X, and then I basically fed what I wrote to this AI model to basically generate these slides, and this is what it came up with. In my opinion, it's actually not that good, but that's just because I'm like super self-critical. Anyway, let's go through this. So yeah, basically the idea, I think the main idea is like my life has taken a turn recently, and this was like a conscious turn that I took. I looked at myself and I was like, is this where I actually want to go? And don't get me wrong, like if I had continued down my path, I probably would have been fine. But would I have been great? That was the question, and the answer that came to me was no. I would not have been great in any sense of the word, and I didn't like that outcome, right? Because it felt like too much of a deviation with regards to what I could be accomplishing. So yeah, basically I started to understand that, and I think most of it was actually because of this one ebook. It's not an ebook, it's like an old book, but it's an audiobook version. It's called Compensation, and like the main principle is like there is no actual gain in life, there is no progress. Everything, like, you, as much as you gain you lose, as much as you take you give, so that made me realize that in my act of like trying to take like all the advantage of life, I was actually giving up a whole lot, and that was manifesting in like these weird funny ways that I didn't understand. I would ask myself, why the hell is this not going the way I wanted to? And the answer would not come to me, but that was the answer in and of itself. I was over optimizing for the wrong things, and yeah, that made me understand that the path I was on was incorrect. What I should be doing was effectively not optimizing at all, and you understand what I mean soon enough. But basically, if you know my story, then you know that I effectively went from a university dropout to someone who's like super depressed living at home, to someone who would spend his days like reading books and like basically indulging in pornography and some bullshit, to someone who was so driven that he would work like 18-hour days non-stop for years now. It's been years and I've been literally doing the exact same thing. Um, and like the change was so drastic. I mean, maybe from the outside looking in, like some people might say, "What the fuck? Like, how could someone just change like that? How could they reinvent like themselves like that?" But I did it, and like I just all I did was just give myself something to aim towards, and I just started taking one step at a time. Started writing the stories I was reading. Made a little bit of money. The more money I made, the more ambitious I became. Made a really dumb investment into a blog. That blog wasn't really anything special in the beginning, but it gave me the skill of writing and using AI, and that one skill was going to be like super crucial into how I got into everything else, because my writing fed into my scripting for videos, it fed into my Substack writing, it fed into literally and also my obsession with content and automating content as well. Like everything fed into the direction I ended up going, and I didn't know I was going in that direction. I just thought that I was just becoming more and more ambitious as time goes by, and I think nothing actually changed. Like even where I find myself now, I'm an automation engineer, and I think I can just become an ML engineer within a few months, if not a few years. Maybe that's crazy. Maybe I don't care because I think I can do it. Like, what's actually stopping me? Other than the fact that there's like 24 hours in a day and 8 of those are going to be spent with my eyes closed. Nothing much. So yeah, in order for me to actually make that much progress, I had to let go of basically everything. I cut off literally everything. I even came up with all these ways of like rationalizing the things I was doing. Most of them were unhealthy, and I basically just isolated myself like a lot. And there was this feeling like isolation even while being surrounded by people, where like I would look at my own family members and I wouldn't just like it would just be funny like to me. It didn't feel, yeah, and it was all my fault. Like I put myself in this self-reinforcing loop where I was cutting off literally everything that was meaningful. Anyway, I worked my fucking ass off, and like with enough hard work and probably a lot of luck that I put myself in, I ended up moving to the city that I wanted to move to, which is Cape Town, right? The beautiful city. Struggled a lot after coming in. And like looking back, it didn't seem like that much of a struggle because I don't think I was ever like suffering from like not having cash or whatever. But that was only because I was just making the decision of staying at home. I was never actually going out and spending on anything. I was always just working, and reinvesting. So it was a crazy time. But I always had hope, and yeah, as much as I also had skepticism, that kind of fed into it. That I think a theme, a really reoccurring theme with my life is I have this like critic inside that's just always like spinning in my face. But like that's kind of useful because it kind of teaches me to not settle, because things can always be better, like you're probably not there, and that's okay. You can just keep going, anyway, so I have this tendency to expect the worst from the world, and maybe this is just something that I've learned after all this time, like self-isolation. I don't know what to expect, and maybe that's just feeding into it. Maybe it's all these other experiences that I've had in all this time. Maybe it's just I lack an understanding. Whatever it is, I I don't want to tell myself that I can't overcome this. Rather, I know I can, right? Because I've recently come to an understanding of what drives me as well. But one of the major things that I had was like I had this fondness for this one woman, um, and that was like a really big driver for me, like a big motivation. Um, but it wasn't really that big. It was more like I was just unwilling to go outside. And so I would make up all these different rationalizations for whatever the fuck I was trying to accomplish. The funny thing is I ended up like I worked so hard to like be around her, and then I ended up getting rejected yet again, which is just funny. But it's like if that's not indicative of the truth, I don't know what is. It's like most times we go out of our way to try and get something when it's always been right here in front of our faces the entire time. I think I think I think this one lesson will keep reoccurring in my life. Like it'll keep showing itself again and again and again. But I also think that there's a part of me that maybe wants to relearn it because there's some higher wisdom in there somewhere. Um, you know, chasing and chasing when we don't actually want to find the thing we just like to chase. Like there's a certain nature to desire and loneliness, and when we sort of when we tell ourselves that this doesn't exist, when we tell ourselves that we can just be okay, um, as much as yeah, you can totally like you can successfully lie to yourself, but you will pay for it. The universe will make you compensate for that. And again, like you can tell just how much this idea of compensation has really fed into this new these new ideas that I've been playing around with. Like even hyperintentionalism, I feel like it may have been really amazing, but at the end of the day, it also had a compensation, and the compensation was just the quality of my life, right? So I I effectively just took a moment to step out of my head and actually go beyond what I thought was possible. And I've been doing that recently. You know, basically like going outside and watching movies because why not? There was a version of me that's telling me, oh yeah, no, this is a waste of time or waste of money when I could like be reinvesting this in something, da 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 whatever. But there's another version that's like, you know, just do it and see what happens. Because what's the worst that can happen? You can only learn something new. Anyway, yeah, I am a really hard worker. Um, and maybe that's just me. Like, honestly, there was a time where I keep thinking about this quote. Only a slave quantifies his existence through productivity. And it made me pissed off the first time I read it. But like that was partly because it was true. There was a time where I would be so proud of myself for like about the fact that I worked so hard. I mean like yeah, it's only fair for me to actually like be successful not because I work harder than anyone else. And to an extent it may have been true-ish. Like I ended up gaining some modicum of success according to someone else's standards. And you know what, like I guess that's fine-ish, you know. But like I still feel a bit lost. I don't know how it's like I work so hard, but I feel like my outcomes are just like not there, you know. And I was trying to understand like why I feel like this because there really isn't like a rational reason for this to be true. So like understanding it, and then I came to the conclusion that maybe there was probably something missing, right? And again, it goes back to that thing. It's like in my act of trying to become someone worthy of others being around, I ended up isolating myself, which is like kind of funny when you think about it. Like if you really take a moment to think about it, you're like, that doesn't make sense. And yes, it doesn't make sense. It's the funny paradoxes of life that make everything make sense in weird ways. Anyway, I do have a beautiful life, and I just want that to not be boring. I want it to be an interesting life where I make a ton of mistakes and I'm super confused like 99% of the time. But that 1% where everything is literally just clicking into place, that's what I want. You might say that's a crazy ratio, but that's exactly why it's more meaningful like that. I feel like life needs to mostly be suffering, because the sweeter moments will be that much more sweeter. And that's why I'm like in my search for these missing pieces, because I'm not even sure what's missing. So I'm trying to experience all these different things, trying to understand what it is, and um, maybe part of it is just the assumption of there being something missing. I think that's the problem in and of itself. Maybe nothing's missing. Maybe I just want to discover some new aspect of this existence that I didn't realize before, and maybe that will give me some insight that I'll be okay with, and who knows what will happen next. But yeah, anyway, I've come to an understanding, right? And it's the fact that how I was living before was mostly optimizing for outcomes when I should actually be optimizing processes. So what that means is I would imagine some ideal state, and then I'd be like, okay, how do I get there? And then I would try an action, and then if that action didn't take me there, I'd be like, damn it, I need to get there. And I would basically do this again and again and again. You might understand what would happen if I actually did this enough times. I would probably end up like very fucking miserable. What I mean by that is, for one thing, in my act of actually getting there, I would most likely take the action that I thought would get me there the quickest, but that action would be informed by my understanding of myself and the situation from the past. So I don't actually know what it takes to actually get there. So if I take those actions and then I don't get there, I would blame myself, even though technically there's no one else to blame, but I would still blame myself for not understanding what it means to actually get there. And this would just create like this cycle of like not getting things right. I feel like, yes, most of what I've accomplished so far, and again, this is like nothing special, it's just me taking action, just again and again and again taking action, trying to optimize for the outcome of me being financially successful and happy for the most part. But that outcome, maybe the fact that I was optimizing for it, that's exactly why it's not coming to me. What I should have been doing is just building processes around my life where I can at least feel satisfied, right, with exactly what I'm doing, and that will at least push me in the right direction, right? So, because at the end of the day, right, everything in life is just about your standards, and your self-concept. So what you need to do is understand what you're willing to get out of life, and just live with that in mind. And again, like whenever, like the brain always tries to go towards outcomes, but you have to bring yourself like one step back. It's a really interesting thing I'm trying to do, and it's sort of working for me currently. Because whenever I stay too much in the realm of what's possible, in the realm of outcomes, uh, that distance between that place and reality is always like really annoying. Um, it makes me sad, like the fact that I don't have what I want, but you know, I just have to keep trudging on, and like when I trudge on, it gets annoying, like it gets more and more annoying. But when you live not at that state of the outcome, but like in the process itself, everything else like disappears, and you just do things just to do them, right? Um, you know, I think that's like the really satisfying part. And maybe that's why people like flow states so much. I feel like that's what it means to be like in the process. It's to literally just like be in the moment and just do things just to do them. So I'm trying to find more of those things where I could just do them just to do them. Even if they're like really tough to do, even if I'm like not in the best state or my environment is like not agreeing with me, I'm still doing them just to do them, and I think there's like magic in there somewhere. So two key changes that I've recognized after doing this is basically like a destruction of my old self-concept, right? Because at the end of the day, after being in process states like the entire time, um, and then starting to realize these minute changes that didn't seem like anything before, and then I look back and I'm like, damn, that's why I was doing this and this, because I was like looking at myself funny and I didn't even understand myself. Actually, I was ignoring myself. I was like turning myself into this machine. So I was over optimizing for the wrong outcomes because I didn't even understand how to get there. Because my concept of what it means to get there was based on my understanding, based on the past and everything that happened to me before then. So what that meant is basically like removing this rigid faith in this outcome, and taking a step back and just being like, okay, let's just take any action, useful action, and whether it gets me there or not doesn't matter. What matters is whether or not I learn something. So basically this allows me to embrace like an infinite number of opportunities, because opportunity is everywhere, right? Actions over outcomes. That's something I'm telling myself again, again, and again, right? If you think of the outcome as like this integral of every, yeah, if you think of the outcome as like the integral of every like single time step action that you take, and you can like once you sort of let go of the outcome being the most important thing, I think some really cool stuff happens where you can realize that maybe the outcome wasn't that important after all, or wasn't, and like maybe your actions will lead you towards a better outcome. And it's a really, like for someone who's, again, like I have faith, but my faith tends to be rigid, so maybe that will end up applying itself in this process type thinking again, or maybe not, but there's some magic in there, you know, and that's like the really crucial thing for me. So yeah, basically I've come to an understanding that I not like I genuinely do want like meaningful connections with people. um, I also understand that in the past I've experienced like a lot of rejection. Most of it was just based on my own expectations of how the situation would come about or develop. Um, but at the same time, I've also gotten rejected in other types of situations that were like like that didn't have anything to do with human relationships. Um, like I got rejected from jobs, from clients, from things like that. I don't know how many DMs I slid into, only to get met with like blanks, like blue ticks basically on X. This is like, what I'm saying is I can handle rejection, and it's kind of funny how I can handle like one dimension of it, but not the other when they're basically in the same plane. It's kind of interesting, and it also doesn't make sense. So I've been overcoming that by basically just being in the process again. Not really caring too much about this other stuff, because again, everything is always going in the right direction. I think there was like something for me to learn, and I think there's something for me to learn here. I think exploring these two dimensions, where it's like one is outcome based thinking and another is like process based thinking, it'll lead me towards an even greater direction, I think. And I really love the direction I'm going. So yeah, basically, I don't know what the slide is doing actually. Does she have roots in her legs? What the hell? By the way, these images are generated. I think it's using like an old image generation model. What I do is I feed AI the entire text, and it comes up with not only the text content but also the image prompt for every single slide. It's pretty cool. I can totally share this with you if you want, but yeah, anyway. My journey forward is pretty simple. I'm gonna be committing to the process, not just the outcome. Actually, we as humans can't help but be like outcome oriented. But like, as I'm saying, you understand the outcome, but you let go of it because anything could happen. And once you exist in this realm where anything could happen, you start like acting with faith and with intuition, and like things just happen for you. I can't even explain it, man. It's weird, but yeah, you just take like one small step after the other, and like even when you fail, and by fail it means like you feel like you might be further away from the outcome that you imagined before, you have to understand that that's not actually a failure, because for one thing you learned something, for another thing maybe that outcome was never for you anyway. Like every single failure is a stepping stone to success. So yeah, yeah, you just have to build a life of satisfaction with your process, whatever process you choose, and obviously find a way to create meaningful connections, not only with like people but also with whatever you think your calling is. I I think my calling is just like playing around with these interesting ideas and like putting them together into something coherent, something amazing. Um, yeah. Um, yeah, sure. Thanks for joining me, and I would love to hear your thoughts and share experiences. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.